I'm making a rather stream of consciousness sort of video from my laundry room. I live in a country where space is not at a premium, and even people of modest means can have a big house, and I live in a micro home. I even live in a part of the country where space is not at a premium, and everybody can have a big yard and a big house. My house is less than 500 square feet. My house belongs in the Netherlands, not in central Canada on the Great Plains. Anyway, I'm doing a stream of consciousness video from my webcam in my laundry room. Many Canadians, I suffer from seasonal affective disorder, or it might just be recurring depression. I've spoken about this before. Once or twice a year, I'm prostrated by it. I'm also in the middle of some fairly stressful situations. New family, new son, really. I've been married for a while, but finally had a kid, and that causes enormous stress. I'm like many other sort of philosopho-geeks, or geeks in general, if you want to call us that. I have a complicated relationship with my family. I notice that the people that you sort of accept into your family are the ones who just sort of take you as a package, whereas your family, especially if you're the youngest of the litter like me, everyone is out to correct you your entire life, and that can get on your nerves after a while, especially if you're the youngest in the family and you're an egghead. I'm a fairly inept egghead, but I'm an egghead no matter what. It's just I think a lot, and I'm always reading books. I'm always surfing the net for new things to mentally stimulate myself. So that kind of was enhanced at the holiday times. Christmas is a lovely experience for rekindling family dirt. However, what are you going to do? That's just the way of things. So yeah, I've got a lot of stress in my life right now. And it seems to have triggered a depressive episode that may be over now. And, it's, however horrific depression is, if you have it in small bursts like I do, while you're in it, it's ghastly. But if you can sort of contextualize it in terms of your life as a whole, it may actually, in a bizarre way, strengthen your life, because it kind of forces you to cope with things that most people simply don't want to consider thinking about in their life. You have to think about the bad things, and when the bad things happen, your mind just suddenly, of its own accord, undergoes some sort of paradigm shift, and your mind is going to go on to the negative whether you want it to or not. Christmas coffee cup still, right size, for my usual milk tumbler sized cup of espresso first thing in the morning. This is an insane amount of coffee, but I guess I'm an addict. I've got to have some vices. I don't smoke or drink, so so anyway, I decided that I was going to, this time for some strange reason, deal with this affliction, seasonal affective disorder, or just depression, coupled with anxiety, extreme anxiety, where you're just stuck on the couch staring at the ceiling. Just simple things like changing a light bulb become nightmares. It's horrible. But I decided, instead of the usual way of battening down the hatches and waiting for it to go away, true to my reckless nature, and this is reckless when you do this, I decided that I was just going to ride the tiger of depression. Sort of go, okay, what benefit is there in this? What can I take away from this that may actually be useful? Where is the good side of something that is completely devoid of positive characteristics? In other words, let's just assume that what you're seeing, Andy, in your depressive state is real. Say that 95% of the time when you're upbeat and happy and, want to go out and do things, is wrong, and that you're suffering from a delusion, and that the depressed view of reality is the real one. That doesn't seem like much of a leap, because when you go into severe depression, that's what happens. You just sort of say, okay, everything that I've ever felt positive about life in general is wrong, and now I'm seeing the real thing, and everybody else in the world, even if it's everybody else I know or come into contact with who feels otherwise, is wrong, insane, depraved, or in for one hell of a shock when the blinkers are taken away from their eyes, when they see reality for what it really is. I consciously embraced that kind of thinking. That is one hell of a reckless thing to do. I wouldn't even say that it's courageous. It's almost self-destructive. I wouldn't recommend it for anybody, because it's fraught with mad risks. But I wouldn't recommend anybody to take a vacation in, I don't know, a rather down at heel part of Medellin, Colombia, or the various places that I've gone in my life. There's a lot of stuff that I would do that I wouldn't recommend anybody else do, simply because I wonder if people would really get anything out of it. In other words, I think that I'm kind of a misfit when it comes to this life thing. But that's okay. I'm certainly not saying that throat cold, sorry. I'm certainly not saying that I dislike what I am. I just am what I am, and recklessness, whether I like it or not, is part of the deal. As I said, I've made a few videos on this. Wouldn't it be kind of insane? Like, if I could avoid going into battle with bullets passing by my head and explosions and men being blown to pieces all around me, I would make all efforts to avoid it. But I'm realistic enough to know that I'd probably get some sort of runner's high off it all as well. So I try to sort of, in all things, ride the tiger. See why I like Nietzsche so much. And I decided, for whatever reason, that now was the time to ride the tiger of depression and say, let's really get into this and see where it goes. Okay, if you really let slip the reins here, if you really sort of say, all right, I'm just going to let this go where it's going to go, a lot of interesting things happen. For example, I decided that depression is so bad, and again, this was a thought experiment, but a thought experiment when I was in a state of extremis, which again is not something I would recommend anyone. It's akin to sort of trying to meditate while taking hallucinogenic drugs or something like that. It seems reckless. I decided that I was going to become an evangelical Christian, because these people are so upbeat that facing reality simply isn't worth it. That it's better to live in a state of an illusion than facing reality, because reality is so horrible. Alright, so maybe for the space of, I guess, an hour, I lay there on the couch thinking about how becoming a Christian evangelical was going to improve my life. And for a while there, I was a theist in every conceivable way. Instead of just saying that the only way that you can identify a theist is to say that I am a theist, how about when you make yourself a theist in your own eyes? How's that for a thought experiment? How's that for recklessness? As I say, I don't have that normal haram sort of feeling that a lot of atheists or free thinkers have when it comes to religion. I don't see it as bad. Perhaps it's my own arrogance. I say that I'm immune to that. But for an hour there, yeah, that's the way of things. It makes sense to do this. Create your own solipsistic reality, even though it's not real, but the side effects are so positive that it's crazy not to do this. Sort of a good excuse to drink yourself blind drunk every night, I guess. Same idea. Religion is compared to booze or drugs an awful lot. So, I became an evangelical Christian for about an hour. How many people are capable of doing that? Of completely and utterly forsaking your core beliefs or core position like that? Well, I did it. What did I learn? Well, I learned that my position as a non-believer or an unbeliever or whatever you want to call me is fairly secure, because while I was depressed, I believed all kinds of things. Might interest you to know, per the title of this video, that I became an antinatalist for a few hours as well. You just sort of say, okay, what's the attraction here for someone who has decided that life isn't worth living, or who has had it decided for them that life isn't worth living? This intense clarity that comes over you when you suffer from seasonal affective disorder or depression. It's overwhelming. You're sure that anybody who feels anything positive is insane and dangerous. That's depression for you. Now, what happens when you embrace that, when you've been fighting against that all your life? As I say, it's reckless to do that, but I did it. You get an expanded view of reality, is what you get. You sort of think, okay, life isn't worth living. Better to just get out of here as quickly as possible, because this is nothing but a veil of tears, this existence, etc. It's a horrible existence, this reality thing. Well, there's an awful lot positive in there. It's strange. Suddenly you don't worry about the future anymore. The future's gone. All personal responsibility is gone. There is no tomorrow. There is no good to be done in this world, so you don't have to do anything. You're off the hook in the most off the hook kind of way imaginable. That's the first onrush of positive feelings when you embrace, in my experience, thoroughly negative point of view. Sort of the initial rush, I guess, one gets when converting to something. If you've ever converted to anything or any idea, you get an initial rush, and suddenly all these new vistas open in front of you. But you didn't realize at that moment that these vistas had a downside to them. Say, for example, you join a new religion. Okay, there's the case of these Western jihadis joining ISIS. One of them he grew up not far from where I grew up, in Ottawa. And you sort of see how that happens. They discover God, Islam, religion, at some formative period in their life, and it's just wonderful to them. And they go, this is great. And after a while, though, the downside of it all makes itself apparent. It's bloody hard to live as a Muslim in a non-Muslim society, especially when you've embraced ideas that you didn't really think through. Let's say that, okay, now we need Sharia law in Canada, which is not ever, 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 ever going to happen, in spite of what all the right-wingers think. Throat cold. It's just not going to happen. So you get this idea that, okay, now I've embraced this idea, but the world is too stupid to see it. And you're back in the same old position that you were in before. But of course, I guess, when one is young and impulsive, horrible thing to say, I know, I am pushing 50, so I'm talking like that. It happens to us when we get to this age. You tend to sort of go whole hog into everything. And then, of course, one morning you wake up and you're drinking a cup of tea around a fire with an Afghan sitting there and a couple of Syrians there and maybe a Libyan right there, and you're one of them and you're about to attack a bunch of people who are trying to stop Islamic fundamentalism. And you've gone from being a religious convert full of wonderful new ideas to a sordid existence as jihadi, the back end of the world. So I can see that happening when you have too many sudden, or you have a sudden paradigm shift in life that you don't really think about. So I think that embracing ideas or ideologies or points of view that you fundamentally disagree with, or that you fundamentally find yourself unable to digest or assimilate or understand or whatever, can be healthy. It's not for everybody. In fact, it's reckless. It's the emotional or mental equivalent of Russian roulette. The prize of embracing a thoroughly alien point of view, i.e., if you're a right-wing person and you decide to become a communist or a New Ager or whatever you want to call that, it is liberating in its own way, in that you expand your horizons, you expand your point of view, you expand the universe in which you live, simply because you're assimilating contradictory ideas into your, I guess you'd call it your ethos, or your, I guess the Indian word for it is your sadhana, your life path. You're assimilating ideas that are utterly incompatible with your normal ideas, and you're embracing them. Embrace things that are an absolute anathema to you normally. Certain traditions in this world have this, but they tend to be lifelong sort of things, like, say, the Agori bunch in India, who live in a fairly puritanical society that believes in order and pollution avoidance, ritual fitting in, etc. They consciously violate every taboo in Hindu society, consciously going against everything. It's the old, in the Western view of things, I guess, right hand philosophizing or mysticism and left-hand mysticism. Left-hand mysticism is seen as a dangerous path, but with enormous rewards if you pull it off. Embracing ideas, points of view especially, embracing paradigms that are opposite to your normal way of things, is extremely dangerous and difficult. And I would say that it's probably very dangerous to your mental or emotional well-being, although when you're already sort of fairly nuts like me, that's nothing to get too worried about. But if you're the sort of person that requires that anchoring of a fairly normal existence, then I wouldn't suggest it. My computer screen seems to have gone blank, and now I'm just sort of talking away, waiting for the screensaver to stop to see whether or not my computer has just crashed. So I'm just going to have to keep talking. I was just about to end the video somewhere around here, but I'll just have to keep talking or I'll lose everything that I've done before. So, exploring the left-handed view of the world, because we all have sort of positive, negative, or what we believe and what we don't believe, that which we consider halal and that which we consider haram. And I wonder sometimes if that's actually long-term damaging or an actual useful way of looking at reality. It's hard to say. I don't think that there's any actual litmus test for it, because all these, and any sort of analytical tool, any sort of systems analysis, there it's back up, that you come up with is based on certain axioms. It's based on a paradigm. It's based on an idea that you're not supposed to think contrary to the way you think. But I think it is possible to do that. It is possible to embrace that which in your normal run of things is unembraceable. Now, I don't know what you would do if, say, you were say you were a person who was inclined to violent impulses. What would you do then? Or if you had serious substance abuse problems. Because these things are not, these are not the kind of things you can embrace with impunity. Like, okay, if I lay on the couch and wallowing in my own despair and saying that it's real and everything, well, I'm really only a danger to myself, although I suppose I have responsibilities to my family now. And I could be somewhat of a danger to everybody else in terms of my ability to affect their mood. But I'm not going to go out and shoot up at a McDonald's restaurant, or I'm not going to go and join ISIS. I'm not going to, go out and be utterly antisocial. I might be asocial, but not antisocial. Self-discipline, again, I guess, is the key, or a knowledge of what is possible and what's not possible. At no point did I ever think I was going to actually kill myself, and at no point did I ever actually think that I was going to go out and, do something to somebody else. It didn't occur to me. So in that sense, I was ready for that kind of mental paradigm shift, or emotional paradigm shift, to sort of say that I'll just completely reverse course of this massive ship called my life, go in the opposite direction for a while. Reasonably confident, I suppose, that eventually this would lift, this fog of seasonal affective disorder or temporary depression would lift. It doesn't look like that when you're in the middle of depression, but it seems to have been right. It seems to have, like, this view that, okay, I'm safe at actually stepping into this madness called depression and exploring it for everything I can and embracing it, because it will lift. And it did. Last night, I went to bed feeling in the pink. I liked my life. I was happy and everything, and I was just sort of thinking, yeah, that was about right. That was just another episode that I'm prone to. But there's any number of ways to explore this. And there seems to be an actual benefit, a pot of gold at the end of this hellish rainbow. That the negative itself can become a positive. I don't know how to describe it, but you can get value out of the negative. How some people, again, can emerge from Auschwitz with their faith in humanity restored when before they were cynical or didn't believe in anything, didn't believe in their fellow human being, or didn't believe in the value of life, and they learned this in Auschwitz. I read a short autobiography of a fellow who had gone into the Foreign Legion, and he said, you may think this is insane, but what I learned in the Foreign Legion was compassion. An environment that one would assume compassion is completely absent from. Left hand and right hand again. You join a pack of murderous thugs who are guaranteed to be sent off to kill people, and you live a life where there's virtually no positive emotions, and you learn in your own mind to love your fellow human being as a result of this mad lifestyle. It's strange, but some people are apparently put together like this. I may be actually the one depressive in 1,000 whose life will have been improved by depression. Everybody's different. But paradigm shifts, I think, even involuntary ones like seasonal affective disorder, can be manipulated, or what would you call it, assimilated in such a way as that you derive benefit from them. You expand your view of things. Rather than, and I think in this case I learned to allow my more positive side, not to, in a knee-jerk kind of way, discount the negative. So no, there's something to be said for the negative here. Just be careful that you don't become fully negative. I've often thought that, say, my friend Ned Flanders is something of a terrifying person for that reason, because he's unbalanced. Homer Simpson is balanced. He's compassionate, yet he's callous. He's a good family man, yet he's the worst father and worst husband you can think of. He loves his family, yet he totally neglects them and is not even interested in any of them. He's a human being. Whereas, say, I don't know, I can't think of a purely negative Simpsons character, but Oscar the Grouch, we're familiar with that. Just curmudgeon, hates everybody and everything. That's kind of going too far in the other direction. But if I guess you've gone too far in one direction, a jaunt down the road in the negative won't do you any harm, at least if you engage in a modicum of self-discipline. Self-discipline, I think, is the key when you're dealing with that which is normally antithetical to what you normally believe, or the way you normally see reality. So, this was not a see how bad everything is for me video. I didn't intend it that way at all. In fact, I rather dislike anything resembling commiseration, let alone pity. So, but what it is, what I hope to gain out of these episodes is an expanded view of reality. I just want to see reality for what it is. And the depressed view of reality, it's part of reality, isn't it?